What is Sandor Clegane's fate? His is one of the most compelling story arcs in the series, and looks set to carry him right through to the endgame. But how will it end? Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek. Please do consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. Sandor Clegane's journey has been one of the most dramatic in Game of Thrones. He started out in Season 1 as the most loyal of the Lannister retainers. He was Joffrey's hitman, rarely leaving his side, and willing to kill innocent children on his orders. But by the end of Season 7, he was very much on the other side, fighting with the Brotherhood without banners against the army of the dead, and facing off against Cersei and the Lannisters. So what caused such a dramatic turnaround, and what can it tell us about Sandor's ultimate fate? For I think we now know enough to understand what the Hound's fate is in Game of Thrones. But let's start with Sandor's childhood, for that is where his character arc starts, with his brother holding his face in the fire, in revenge for him playing with one of his toys. That encounter left Sandor scarred, physically and mentally. He was left hating his brother, fearing fire, and with a cynical distrust of the world and its hypocrisies. But even when we first see him in Game of Thrones, there were hints that the Hound was not the two-dimensional character that he appeared to be. In particular, we saw flashes of empathy. He sees Sansa thinking about pushing Joffrey off the battlements after he had shown her father's head on a spike, and Sandor stops her. But he doesn't tell Joffrey. Instead, he hands her a handkerchief to wipe the blood from her face. It is a small kindness, but it's clear that he sees her innocence and vulnerability and is trying to help. We also see him lose his temper when he sees an opportunity to face his brother in combat at the Tourney of the Hand. It's clear that his need to gain some retribution for the Mountain's crimes is rarely far from boiling over. But it is his intense fear of fire that finally sees him flee from King's Landing and the life he has carved out for himself with the Lannisters. The wildfire at the Battle of the Blackwater is just too much for him. He tries to persuade Sansa to come with him in another show of his empathy, and the unspoken bond he later forged with Arya, two independent souls who had lost their family but find a kinship with each other, is touching. It's then actually his fear of fire that proves his undoing once more. When he is attacked and bitten by the appropriately named biter, Arya offers to cauterize the wound with fire to prevent infection. He refuses. And when later he faces Brienne in combat, he is visibly weakened by the infection. We don't know for sure who would have won had he been at full strength, and in the books that fight never happened at all. He was simply dying from his infected wound when Arya left him. But in a very real sense, he lay dying there in the Riverlands because of his fear of fire. And that was when Brother Ray found him. The story could have left the Hound there. He had found a peace of sorts, making penance for his sins and finding peace with Brother Ray's community. But Sandor's story wasn't finished. We don't yet know what will happen in the books, but on the show he is drawn back into the blood and fury of Westeros by the destruction of his haven. Since then, he has joined up with the Brotherhood without banners, signing up to their cause, fighting against the army of the dead, without ever truly signing up to their faith. His last action in Season 7 was to confront his brother in the Dragon Pit. If we ever needed any evidence that the Hound is consumed by the need for closure in his relationship with the Mountain, then we have it here. He will have been well aware that the summit at the Dragon Pit was a powder keg moment. Armies had gathered, the rivals for the Iron Throne were facing each other, and the slightest provocation could have caused a catastrophe. Sandor is not stupid. He will have known all of this. and yet he risked all that to confront his brother. He says, "This is not how it ends for you. You know who is coming for you. You've always known." Now, some have suggested that because Sandor doesn't say, "I am coming for you," it means that he is implying Rahilor or someone else is coming for him. I think that's reading too much into this. The only person that Gregor has always known is coming for him is Sandor. So, let's pull all of this together. Sandor's need for retribution with his brother has remained constant through his adult life, so much so that we should expect a confrontation between these two to be the culmination of Sandor's character arc. And for this to gain its fullest poignancy, fire will need to play a significant role in the confrontation, as it did when they were children. Sandor's relationship with fire has been shifting, slowly but inexorably through the seasons. He was scarred by it, then so fearful that he turned his back on everything he had built his life around just to be away from it. Then he conquered that fear enough to allow him to fight against and beat a man with a fiery sword. Now he has reached the point where he can gaze into an open fire and see visions. So what's next? I believe it is for him to use fire, to wield it, and I believe that this will happen when he faces the mountain. When they were children, Gregor used fire against the Hound. This time it will be the other way around. At which point we need to understand who or what the mountain now is. We don't know exactly which dark arts Cybon utilised to animate Gregor Clegane after he should have died, but the closest parallel we have is that of the Whites. The mountain should be dead. He doesn't speak. He seems to have some kind of crude intelligence, but no independent volition other than to follow orders. So we are left with the distinct impression that he is, to all intents and purposes, a White. And Whites, as far as we are aware, are killed by only two things: dragonglass and fire. So if Sandor's character arc is to come full circle, he will need to confront the mountain once more, and this time he will gain his vengeance with fire. He will kill the mountain with fire. If we were to push this a little further, we could look to the Hound's relationship with Rahilor. The first thing to say here is that Sandor is not a convert to the Red God. When he saw a vision in the flames, it was Thoros conjuring the vision, not him. And immediately afterwards, when he was searching for some kind of words to say over the bodies of the farmer and his daughter, he reverted to the Faith of the Seven, not Rahilor. So Sandor is not signed up to the Red God. Although, if the Red God is real, and that is something I'll definitely be covering in a future video, then it doesn't rule out the possibility that he might be a champion of Rahilor in some way. Either way, Sandor's brush with the Rahilor worship and with both Beric and Thoros opens up the possibility that we might sometimes see him with a flaming sword. Flaming swords aren't necessarily a sign of great faith. Beric's may well be a blood magic thing, and only happened after he had gained faith, but Thoros's wasn't. He used his flaming sword in tourneys and battles throughout the time when he was Robert Baratheon's drinking buddy, the time when his faith was weakest, so there is no reason why others cannot learn the same trick. So perhaps Sandor will learn how to wield a fiery sword for the battle against the army of the dead, when it would be very useful, and perhaps he will be viewed by the priests of Rahilor as being a champion of Rahilor because of it, but for him personally it will come to its greatest meaning when that battle is all done, when he heads back south. For perhaps the only weapon that can kill an undead mountain is fire. It would be the perfect ending for Sandor's character arc, to burn his brother as he was burned as a child, to have conquered his fear of fire so completely that he can use it to finally gain closure, and to end the unlife of one of the most unambiguously horrific characters in Game of Thrones. And what then? Who knows? Perhaps he will die himself with his life's mission complete, or perhaps he will finally be able to start again as Sandor Clegane, with his life as the Hound well and truly in the past. What do you think? What do you think Sandor's fate is? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if you'd like to support me in making these videos, then please do check out my Patreon page. And if you want to be sure to catch my other videos, then click on the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. That's all for this time. I'll see you again soon.